Today, I'm going to show you how to achieve some high-end holiday looks for less, keeping everything budget-friendly and creating some naturally rustic Christmas decor. Welcome to Christmas at the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra, and I'm so glad you're here. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that red button and stick around a while. Project number one is probably the easiest of everything that I'm going to show you today. I was lucky enough to find this wooden Christmas tree at a thrift store. It did cost me $7.99. It's missing the top. You can see there I pointed out the little hole, so the star or whatever piece was supposed to be on the top is missing. But I have this wood finial, and I thought, you know what? This is going to be a perfect topper for the tree. It fits in there absolutely perfectly, and I'm just going to use hot glue to hold it in place. For the base of the tree, I used black and burnt umber mixed together with a little bit of water to make my own stain. I'm going to brush that on and then wipe off the excess. This is the tree that I'm duping today. It is from West Elm and one is $68. That's crazy. Now, I know my shape is a little bit different, but I love it just the same. I'm so excited to share with you that today I am collaborating with my best friend Sonia here on YouTube, and she's also my best friend in real life. She is so inspiring to me. She does a lot of looks for less and high-end dupes from Pottery Barn, McGee & Co. and West Elm. So if you are interested in learning how to create high-end looks for way less, then she's your gal. Make sure you head on down to my description box. I'll also have her channel linked in the pinned comment because you don't want to miss out on what she's creating for the holiday season this year. Project number two is using this pine. This I got at my local Dollarama store a few years ago. Sometimes they still have it, but it's so nice and soft, and I love the texture of it, and the branches are really nice and thick. I'm pulling everything off the stems because I don't need them. I'm using a piece of soft floral foam, and this is what I am trying to recreate, a 6-inch artificial Christmas soft touch pine orb. By the holiday aisle, it's Wayfair. It's $83 just for the greens, not the pot, just the greens. Really? Oh my gosh. The prices out there are absolutely scandalous. So all I have to do is poke these into the floral foam, keeping a nice rounded shape at the top. So I'm using the longer pieces on the top. I'll switch to some of the shorter pieces down on the sides and towards the bottom. And then all I have to do is poke it into this ceramic canister that I got from the thrift store for $4. And for about $7, I have a beautiful little Christmas display. I never really thought about using pine in this way. So I really love the look of this, and I think it's going to be gorgeous for the holiday season. Now, all I have to do is just squish the floral foam right into the top of this sort of vintage canister that I found, and then add a few pine cones. And I'm just going to stick the pine cones in. I'm not even going to use any hot glue. As I get older, I have been wanting to do more easier things for Christmas. I don't do a whole lot of decorating, but I just love the look of this naturally rustic decor piece. The pine cones and the pine branches are just so pretty, and it's a really nice look for the holidays. Let me know what you think. Okay, let's talk about walnuts. How much more rustic can you get with a natural walnut? A couple of weeks ago at the grocery store, I saw them in a bin and I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to use some of those in my decor this year for Christmas. So I grabbed a bunch of them and now I'm just adding some of this dark brown leather twine. I'm making a loop, putting a knot down at the bottom, and then I'm going to trim off the excess and then just use hot glue to glue them to the top of the walnut. And that's going to create the hanger for when I put them on the tree. I got a bunch of this leather cording in different colors from Beebee Craft. And if you're not familiar with them, they have a ton of crafting supplies for wood, for leather, for paper, for stencils, you name it, they've got it. I have a link for them down in my description box. So go ahead and check them out and see if you can find something that will help you with your Christmas decor this year. I'm using some white chalk paint and I'm doing it fairly thick on the top, and then I'm going to dry brush a little bit down further. This is just going to help me mimic a little bit of snow on the top of the walnut. This is a bit of the look that I want to achieve. Now, this one is from West Elm and it's $17.90 Canadian. That's probably about 14 in American dollars. But I'm still not going to pay that for one ornament that I know I can make. Once the paint was dry, I used Aleene's clear tacky glue. I use this glue because it's super thick and it's not going to run. So I'm going to put a fair amount on the top of each of the walnuts, really close to the hanger. I'm going to have a little bit dripping down on the sides, just a wee bit. It does kind of, gravity does its work. So it does kind of pull the glue down in some spots, but it didn't matter. I'm rolling it in Epsom salts and then I'm going to hang it to dry. And I think these turned out so cute. Okay, let's get into project number 3. I'm using some of these lavender leaves, and I have a couple of other stems from the Dollar Tree that have the same type of leaves, but they're pointed and they're a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to use my little tiny detail scissors and cut a rounded edge to get rid of that point. This is the look that I am trying to recreate. They're faux mistletoe trees. They're a set of 2, and they're from Pottery Barn, on sale for $71. The first thing I'm going to do is to create all of my little branches. So I have some real branches from outdoors in the fall. We had some cleanup we did in the backyard, and then I saved some of these little branches, and they're perfect size. I'm also using some little red pip berries. I didn't have round berries, so I had to just make do with what I had because there was no way I was going to the store to spend more money. I'm going to put the little berry on the end of the branch, and then I'm going to add the leaves. I'm placing the leaves underneath the berry because that's what the inspiration looked like. Eventually, I end up putting the leaves on the top so they droop down a little bit more, but I had a really nice assortment of some that were just sticking straight out like this one and some of them drooping down. These were really easy to do, but they did take some time. So if you're going to recreate this project, throw on a YouTube video, maybe my Christmas playlist, listen and enjoy, and just take your time to create these little stems. I grabbed another one of my sticks that I always keep in my craft room. They're nice and dry, so they work perfectly. I had carved out just a little bit of a hole in this wood coaster using some hot glue. I just added the stem in there and held it until it was all set up. Now it's time to add the branches to the tree, and using my inspiration from the Pottery Barn site, I just kind of did what it looked like. I did have to do a little bit of trimming on some of the branches just to make them a little bit shorter. And again, holding them in place at the angle that I wanted until the hot glue was dry. And this is how it turned out. For my last project, I am making a wreath. I don't make wreaths very often because they are kind of big and bulky to store, and I've only got so much room in my house. But when I saw this one on Wayfair, I fell in love. I love the jingle bells, the rusty, crusty kind of look to it, and it's just, I don't know, it just makes my heart happy to see this one. I'm going to be using some of these small zip ties or cable ties, whatever you want to call them. And that's what I'm going to use to attach all of the branches to this wreath. At the end, you won't see them because I'm going to cover them up with some of the greens. I really like the look of the lighter green in this wreath. So I looked through my stash of greens and I did find some that are a lighter green rather than the normal dark green pine that you get. These are some juniper branches and they do have a little sparkling of snow on them, but that's okay because I'm making a Christmas wreath and I don't mind this type of sparkle. I just don't like all the really heavy glitter. I'm going to be putting them on the wreath form, going in the same direction because that is what the inspiration piece looked like too. Then I used a little bit of another type of pine because I ran out of the juniper. I used that to fill in some of the spots that were sparse. And now I'm just cutting that pine down and just going around where all of the cable ties are so you can't see them. Hot glue holds all of this in place really well. To work on all of the stuff that I needed for my wreath, I had to think outside the box. The wreath had some tan and sort of beige colored berries. I didn't have any of those, and I didn't want to paint some of my red berries because a lot of times the red can come through and then you still see it. So I looked through my stash and decided to think outside the box. And I'm using some of these little wood beads. I'm throwing them into a jar with some of my honey brown paint, which is sort of a really muted orange color. And that is what I'm going to be using for some of these beads. I'm going to just dip them in there and then I'm putting them on a paper towel and I'm going to wipe them off and then they'll be stained a really pretty tan color. I already have some different sizes of rusty jingle bells that I made last year, but I needed to do these three big ones. So I'm just using this burnt umber paint, which I've been using quite a bit in my crafts this year. And for some reason, this one has a really sort of reddish brown tint to it. So using this kitchen sponge, I'm going to just dab it onto the silver jingle bells and then set them aside to dry. Once they were almost dry, I sprinkled them with some cinnamon to just mimic the look of rust. And the smell is really great too. Next, I grabbed three of these sort of wonky primitive stars, and I'm going to do the same thing with them. I'm going to dab on the burnt umber paint, but I'm not going to make it solid. I want to see a little bit of that light wood peeking through as well. And then I'll add cinnamon to these too. Now it's time to put everything together, and to make it a little bit easier to add things to the wreath, I'm putting the beads and the jingle bells onto these little branches. This is something that was on an older wreath that I had, and it was just like wound around. So there's a nice curve and arc in all of these branches, and I thought that would be perfect. Using a little dab of hot glue helps to keep everything in place. And I was surprised how good these turned out. They actually look like berries and not beads. Now it's time to assemble all the pieces together onto the wreath. And what I like to do is take each of the pieces and lay them out ahead of time. And then I know exactly where I want to put them. And putting the beads and the jingle bells onto a stem made it so much easier to use hot glue to put it together. I added the larger pine cones towards the center of the wreath. Then I added some smaller pine cones more on the outside. Now, the stars, I think they really made this piece. I'm going to put one on the top and then two on either side. And I think these really added a lot of character and primitive to this wreath. The jingle bells, I'm going to be using some torn strips of fabric. I did not have anything plaid that I wanted to use, so I ripped up these little pieces. They're beige and it's sort of a Nordic stripe look to it. Just created a shoestring bow and glued it onto the large jingle bell, and then those will in turn get glued onto the wreath. I just love how this wreath turned out. It is naturally rustic. It has a little primitive look to it, and it sure as heck did not cost me $83. Let me know what you think of this one. I hope you enjoyed these naturally rustic Christmas projects. They're high-end looks for less, they're budget-friendly, and they help you create a holiday vibe that feels rich and luxurious without breaking the bank. If you're looking for even more holiday inspiration, check out my Christmas playlist. I've got a ton of ideas for you there. Bye for now.